All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us for our short little 30-minute webinar on tips for using Storyline 360 blocks in Rise. It's great to see you all this afternoon. Hope you're staying safe and sound and looking after yourself. Maybe you're kicking back with a cup of coffee or something similar while you're taking this in. That's all cool. So it is really good to see you and great for you to join us as well. So just very briefly, a bit about us. Be Online Learning, we are, well, most of you probably have a lot of familiar names around the place. So I think a lot of you have worked with us before or seen us before, but if you're brand new, welcome. It's great to see you and welcome back to those that are obviously do know us. We have a number of products and services that we offer. First of those is Birch, which is our learning platform. So it's designed to make learning feel natural again. It uses cutting edge responsive design to provide a turnkey learning solution, the Birch Learning Platform. So basically, it can look after all of your online learning management. It can also look after your face-to-face learning, your webinar-based learning, even your on-the-job assessment learning. So it kind of covers the absolute gamut of everything you could possibly want to track when it comes to your learning and development within your organization. That also includes our Birch Learning Platform e-learning catalog, and that delivers a perfect experience across all devices. It's built in Rise and Storyline, featuring media, interactions, workplace scenarios, bookmarks, knowledge checks, you name it. It helps you to keep up to date with the latest legislative changes to ensure your organization is meeting all of its compliance requirements as well. So that's our learning platform. We also develop custom content. We have a pre-built course library, plus we also develop bespoke content in conjunction with clients as well. So if they need something particular built, we can certainly help them out with that or advise them and helping out with it as well. We were also chosen quite a number of years ago now by Articulate to be their certified training program partner throughout Australia and New Zealand. So if anyone's after any sort of training in regards to Storyline or Rise or the Articulate 360 suite of products, we can certainly help them out. And if you have any questions or queries about that, there'll be a time at the end where you can ask those questions as well. Quite a number of people jumping in the classroom now, so welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And yeah, so that's us. You know, you didn't come here to learn all about us. You come here to learn about other stuff. But if you do have any questions or queries about any of the products or services that we offer, please feel free to hang around after the session or, you know, jump on our website and check us out there as well. All right, so let's get into it. So a couple of quick little things. Most people have used Zoom or some sort of webinar-based software over the past couple of years. The pandemic tends to do that for most of us. So just to keep you in the loop for this session, with the Zoom, the Q&A is open. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask, please feel free to throw them in the questions and answer section. Or if you just want to ask some questions or talk or give some inspiration or just share an idea, let us know in the chat. Both of those you will locate via icons down the bottom of your Zoom interface. So you'll see them down here. If you just click on them, it'll open up a little window. You'll be able to see the chat. You'll be able to see the Q&A as well. Now, don't stand on occasion. Any questions or queries, please feel free to throw them in either of those two places, and we're more than happy to address them as we go through the session today. All right. So, housekeeping done. Let's talk about why we're here. And that is Rise. Rise is a great application that's available as part of the Articulate 360 suite. It's easy to learn, it's easy to work with. And the great thing about Rise is because it's so template driven, really the extent that you need is really just to be able to copy and paste to get your content into Rise or upload your photos or your videos as the case may be. You still need some instructional design now to make sure it makes sense and that it's broken down in a way that your learner can process that information. But the great thing about it, if your content is prepped and it is already broken down, you can really work quickly and effectively with it by putting into Rise and using its built-in templates, whether that be its text blocks or its interactive blocks or its video blocks or whatever the case may be. You've got a great variety of templates and forms that you can use to build your course together. And as you stack those blocks on top of each other, that creates your web page or your e-learning course that you can then put together and deliver to your learner. Now, Rise can be used for a whole heap of different things. Not only can it be used for developing for e-learning, you can also use it for things like virtual workbooks. And in fact, in our certified training programs, if any of you have attended those, we actually provide the workbook to learn all about Storyline or Rise or any of the other Articulate 360 items as a Rise workbook. The great thing about that is it's fully responsive, no matter what device you access it on, whether it be your desktop computer or your smartphone or your tablet or phablet or whatever the case may be, whatever device you use, Rise can automatically work out what's the best way to present the content to you to give you the best experience as well. And part of the reason why Articulate developed Rise was for that exact reason. Back in the old days, you'd have to develop a course not only for your desktop computer and your mobile phone and your tablets. So you're kind of rebuilding the same course 3 different times. Now, ain't nobody got time for that. So Articulate said, why should the developer have to do that? Why can't the tool be smart enough to work that out for them? And that's kind of where Rise came from, so that you as the developer could build your course once, and then no matter what device your learners access on, it'll look great, sound great, and still make perfect sense for them as well. Now, you may not realize that the Articulate 360 Suite was released back in 2016. Okay, so it's been around for a little while, not a long time, but a little while. And the great thing about that is when it launched, because of this template-driven setup, I was actually really pleasantly surprised that I could build my first Rise course in about 30 minutes. I had the content prepped, I had the information I needed, and literally just copying and pasting into Rise, I could put something together that looked minimalist in its design, but also very effective when it came to people accessing it. And that really blew me away because I'd been used to using Storyline or Studio, which took a little bit more time to get my head around. The other good thing about Rise, it's web-based, so it's completely updated online. We don't need to download or install any updates or patches because it's all done server-side. So Rise does all its applications on its server. So anytime a new feature is released, you've got it automatically. You've got access to it straight away, and you don't need to worry about installing or downloading anything as well. Now, the great thing about Rise is over the past 6 years, it has been enhanced and added to in so many different ways that it can do so much more now than what it could do originally at launch. And the other exciting thing on the roadmap when it comes to Rise, there's some more exciting stuff coming soon as well. There's some vast levels of customization coming your way, plus also some other blocks that you can take advantage of. So keep an eye on it. It's a very exciting time to be using Rise. Now, that's all the good news with Rise, but on the downside, because everything is form-based or templated, you do run the risk of all your Rise courses looking very samey. All right, so no matter what the topic is, because it's using those templates or those preset interactions or multimedia blocks, whatever the case may be, they do look very similar. So people can see this is a course that's been built in Rise. Now, that's not a bad thing. It's just part of the actual process when you're using a program that runs predominantly off templates or off forms. Now, having a good understanding of graphic design can really add to your Rise courses. So you can use colored backgrounds, you can create images or diagrams externally in third-party software programs, and then bring those into Rise, and they can really add a bit of uniqueness to your Rise course as well. But again, it's still the same kind of templates or blocks that you're already working with. Now, with us at Be Online, we've actually recently been working with a number of clients that love Rise. That's one of the primary tools they use. But they wanted to overcome this challenge. They wanted to add some difference to their Rise-based courses to make them a little bit more unique and a little bit more interesting than just straight vanilla flavored Rise 360. So to have some difference in learning activities outside of those provided in Rise. Now, Rise has a bunch of great learning activities in its accordion, its tabs, its labeled graphics, its process diagrams, its scenarios, its sorting activities, its timelines, its flashcards and buttons. But they just wanted to add something a little bit more unique and a bit individual. So the question is, how do you do that? How do we add a little bit of uniqueness to our Rise 360 courses? And the answer is Storyline 360. Fire it up, build yourself a couple of slides, whether it be interactions or screen recordings or even quiz questions, and you can add those to Rise via the Storyline 360 block. And if you're not familiar with the Storyline 360 block, this is where it's located. It's part of your block library. So when you go to block library, interactive, and if you scroll right down the bottom of all those interactivities, then you can see that there is one there called Storyline. This guy, okay? The great thing about this is you can embed anything built in Storyline 360. There is a bit of a process to it. So you build it in Storyline first, then you publish it to Review 360. And then via your Rise module, you come and grab the Storyline block, And then when you add it, you actually select which storyline module you want to use from those that have been published to Review 360. All right, now that might sound like a complicated process, but it's actually really, really straightforward and very, very easy. And I'll show you an example of that at the end of the day as well. But the great thing about that is that suddenly opens up a whole world of unique interactions that you can add to your Rise 360 courses. Doesn't mean you don't need to use any of the Rise stuff anymore. Like, you still would use it. And that's the benefit of Rise. It's short, it's sweet, it's easy, it's effective. But you can just add occasional little interactions around the place to give that a little bit of uniqueness as well. So today's session is really about just kind of showing you some examples of what we've built for some clients recently, and then also giving you some tips in regards to what you could do when it comes to building your next Rise course. Now, just a kind of side note, just because you're going to use Storyline to add storyline blocks to your actual Rise course, it doesn't mean you need to create a lot of storyline stuff. Because if you find you're creating a lot of storyline stuff, then you might as well have built the course within Storyline. Okay, so that's the kind of the trade-off. It's really nice to, if you have just like a nice little interaction you want to add to your Rise course, maybe it's something you've pre-built in a Storyline course or you've reviewed recently, or you just want to get something that's a little bit more interactive than what Rise offers you, then that's what you can use Storyline for. So what I want to show you today is 3 quick examples. The first one is one to bring in some custom interactions when it comes to working with Rise. Another way that you can Storyline to create explainer videos. So then you can add those explainer videos. So you publish those creations within Storyline as a video, and then you can upload those back into Rise from there. And then I also want to share with you, because there's been a couple of updates to Storyline 360 recently, one of which is a new trigger called print slide. So the great thing about that is you could have a slide created. You could capture some information from your learner, and then you can print that slide for your learner to actually walk away with and take to a mentor or a teacher or a coach or a colleague or a team meeting or whatever the case may be. Now, that capability has always been within Storyline, but it was actually managed via JavaScript previously. Now they've actually got a print slide trigger built into the trigger panel. You don't even need to worry about finding that code to be able to print that. It allows you to do that. So I want to share with you a couple of ways that you can actually use that to print something out. One of the things that I find with e-learning is people kind of get very contained with everything has to be done on the screen. The great thing is once you can start using this and throw some ideas together, you can print out things like certificates, you can print out things like working journals, like notes, answers to questions that maybe you want to go and talk to other people about. It really just opens up the world of what online learning can actually be. And if you combine that as part of a blended program, not only could you have some face-to-face stuff and some online stuff, you could print some stuff off that they've done online and then take that to a face-to-face session or a chat with a coach or whatever the case may be. So that's what some examples I want to share with you today. Some custom interactions, some explainer videos, how to record and print notes, and sure, how to do a certificate in Rise too, if you want to do that on top. There are some additional ideas that I'll share with you as well, and those are things that are built into Storyline and Rise as well. Things like you could actually bring a 360-degree image across from Storyline into your Rise course. That'd be really good for an induction program or something you want to send out to your learners prior to them actually coming to the office. Then they can access that on their iPad or their Android tablet or their phone or whatever the case may be, but also tracking completion of your Rise course via a Storyline block as well. So let's get out of death by PowerPoint. So let me just quit this share for a moment. I'm going to come back to my main screen. Oh, close. All right. And what I want to share with you first up is a Rise course that I've popped together just to demonstrate what it is you can use these Storyline blocks for. Now, let's double check I'm sharing the right screen. Looks like I am. Good. That would be embarrassing otherwise. So I've got a stock standard Storyline course here. Let's actually preview it. Let's throw it out. So I've built part of this in Rise, and then I've also brought in those Storyline 360 slides as well. So this is my course, a couple of different topics talking about custom interactions, etc. And when I hit begin, the first example I want to share with you is, now this is a training, the content in this course is based on some content we developed for Target a couple of years ago now. And so this isn't actually their training course. I've just taken some of the content from that, but I've also reused some of the Storyline interactivities that we built for them at the time as well. So this is just a bit of a rundown on their safety. It's excerpts, it's not the full program, but you can see that I can still use my stock standard RISE blocks. So I've got a text block here. I've got a flashcards. So all this, none of this gets kind of obsoleted. It still comes handy. But as I come on down, that's when I can actually bring in something from Storyline itself. So rather than just having, read and click some flashcards, what I've done here is I've actually built within Storyline just a single slide, which kind of challenges the learner to think about, in this case, a hazard in their own business, and to actually provide some information about that. So for example, taking that content to apply that content to actually make sure that I'm embedding that learning. Maybe I've got a extension cord running across the floor. Okay. What could it be? Well, that would be a trip hazard. And how would I coach that? Then I could explain to the staff member who left it there, the importance of not actually having things like cords, etc., kicking around the place. So the nice thing about this is I can then submit it, and there we go. Using a reference back to those text-based variables, I can give a summary to the learner about what they said and what they did. So again, it just kind of takes us outside the standard click and reveal interactions that are available within RISE itself. And this is just built, I'll show you the actual file in a moment. This is just built via text variables and then referencing those text variables as well. So in fact, if I zip back over here, I can show you that exact one. Here it is. So I'm just capturing some text. And then I've got a couple of layers that provide feedback based on that. So there's the reference to those variables as well. So very, very simple slide I can make. But again, once again, it kind of stretches that RISE capability one step further. All right, let's have a look at some others. This might be one about risk assessments. So again, I've still used the text blocks that come standard in RISE. I've also used the image block. I've come down, still using the knowledge check. So very, very simple that I can come through and get this, still build some stuff. All right, so I can introduce them to risk assessment, get them to check their knowledge. And then again, below that, I can bring in a custom interaction, which will allow my learner to actually practice what it is they've just read through. So you'll see that by using these kind of custom little interactions, it's no longer kind of like a kind of read with the occasional interactivity. It's kind of allows learners to really apply the knowledge that they're playing with as well. So in this one, basically is a lot of hovering here. So you can give them a tip in regards to what stuff is. It's actually asking them to rate some possible hazards. So via the severity of the hazard or the likelihood of that hazard occurring. And the learner, as they hover over various sections, it gives them some information down the bottom here of what each one is. So what very likely means, what likely is about. So these are just standard hover interactions that I've built within Storyline. And then from that, I can make some choices as to what each of these hazards might be. So the learner can again apply with a bit more hands-on, a bit more interactivity, the actual subject that they're going through. And again, this is just used a standard question. It pumps back some feedback via a layer, which tells them how they went and gives them further information about that as well. All right. So again, it's just kind of giving that opportunity for people to do a little bit more than just your standard click and reveals. Another way you could use it as well. All right, so this is talking about different types of injuries, give some information about what the most common injuries are. But again, rather than just having that passive experience with the learners just kind of reading through the content, as we come down the bottom here, again, we can pop in a little interaction to say, hey, listen, what do you reckon is the rate of injuries in regards to these various items within our organization as well? So again, this gives the learner a bit more hands-on so they can make some choices about what percentage of injuries might be there. I'm just going to go 10, 10, back, let's go 20%, that makes sense. Hands and fingers, 10 and 10. All right, so from this, it's just kind of getting them to think about that information they've looked at. All right, I've got 100%, that's always a bonus. And then when I want to check my answers, when I hit the check my answers again, this is just using some layers and feedback built within Storyline to provide extra info. So I've got some markers here that talk about the various types of injuries. And then I've also included as part of that image, the actual percentage of injuries as well, to see how close the learner was in regards to their kind of guessing or understanding of what the most common types of injuries are. Okay, you can do this with all sorts of stuff. Other type of custom interactions, you could bring in just one-off click and reveals. So, this is just a very simple click and reveal. Now you could do this with a flashcard within Rise as well, or you could do it via a tab interaction, whatever. But again, it's just kind of giving that little bit of extra customization. You can take something within it, rebuild it within Storyline, and then embed that into Rise. Sliders and dials, another great one as well. So this was a course that we put together for an organization called Lion that uses ammonia as part of their day-to-day stuff. So anyone that's attended some of our training, you might have seen something like this, but this just kind of goes through the process of what various concentrations of ammonia could do to you physically, or medically, as far as an illness or so forth goes. So again, you can create a nice little slider or dial interaction within Storyline, and then use that to pump it across back into here as well. Or even a quiz. If you didn't want to use the built-in quiz that Rise offers you, you can use Storyline to build your quiz. And then just works exactly the same way as what you would do within Storyline itself. So the learner goes through, gets their feedback, and can even do some drag and drops. Whew, got it right, lucky. So it gives you all the same kind of capabilities as what you have within Storyline itself, but just kind of gives it a little bit more variety as well. Now, the great thing about Rise is you could also kind of, with your slides, you can adjust the background color in each of your blocks just to make them blend in a bit better. So for example, you can see with the slide, I've got this white kind of border around it. If I didn't want the white border around it, let's just pop into edit mode. Come down the bottom here. Rather than leaving the background as the default gray, which is what this particular block does when you're embedding a Storyline course. And so this white is actually from the Storyline slide. I can jump in here and change that background to all white. And then once I've done that, it just kind of, the border blends in. So now it looks like it's more of the actual block itself. It's part of the built-in block. If I wanted to use a different color with the background here, all right, let's see if I can grab the right color here. So what's that? 00573F. There you go. So you can actually play with your backgrounds to make things kind of meld in a bit nicer with each other as well. There you go. So it gives you a bit of visual change and also some extra capability as well. So that's one way you could really play with it. The second way is you can get into things like explainer videos. So the great thing about these types of videos is that you can still build them within Storyline, and you've got quite a bit of capability within Storyline to do so. So for example, this first slide I've got, right, this is just talking about how mobile phone towers work. I haven't got any text in this particular one. I've used a lot of images and I've got a couple of layers with some motion paths. Once you publish that, rather than publishing it out as a stock standard Storyline course, you could instead publish it as a video, full 1080p video, high def if you want to, and then drop that video into your Rise course as well. So the nice thing about that is if you want to create like an explainer video or some motion graphics, you can build it in Storyline. You can sync it up to your audio, add some animations and motion paths, then publish it as a video and get something like this.
When you make a call on your mobile, it is linked to the mobile network via towers.
These towers cover a circular area called a cell. A large region can be split into a number of cells. This allows different towers to use the same frequencies for communication links and allows thousands or even hundreds of thousands of mobile phone users. The mobile phone network automatically keeps track of the strength of the signal from your phone. As you move, the tower receiving the strongest signal changes, and the network hands off your call from one tower to another. So again, completely built within Storyline, just using entrance and exit animations and some motion paths, and then rather than publishing as a Storyline course, publishing that out as a video. Right? And you can do that with all sorts of stuff. Like this is one just about, how to wash your hands properly. And all I've done here is I've just actually scheduled some stuff to animate in and animate out at key points within the actual video timeline. So I can use my cue points in Storyline to do that. And again, once I'm happy with it, just publish it out as a video and then add that into my Rise course as well. And the last thing, which is really good too, is if you want to create something like motion graphics. So motion graphics are usually done by specialists in After Effects or something like that. The great thing again within Storyline, just kind of using entrance and exit animations and also using transitions, you can create something that's basically motion graphics, moving stuff around your screen. And then again, that can kind of be added to your Rise course as well to add a little bit of variety or uniqueness as well. And all I've done with this one is, again, with the blocks that I've added, this top block is just a text block. This one here is a video block, and I've just changed the background color to match the primary color of the slides in Storyline as well. Okay, so again, can bring a nice effect in and make it look like it's part very well unified within the Rise course itself. What about some advanced functionality? So these were kind of like that idea of recording some information and then printing them out so the learner can actually walk away with some sort of hard journal or notes or maybe an action plan based on what they've been doing as well. So this is actually some activities taken from a client of ours called Raw People. And these are one of the clients we've been working with that have been looking at using Rise predominantly, but also bringing in a number of actual Storyline interactions as well. So I'm just going to come down to this next one. Actually, let's preview it, so get a good look at it. So again, I've just built these in Storyline, and then I've embedded them into Rise via that Storyline block. So let me just pop down here to this one. Here we go. So something like this is just using some state changes to say, yep, what do I think about my current mental mode for leadership? Am I a sharing leadership? Am I a hierarchical leader? So the learner can make a selection based on where they think they currently sit. And if they want to, they can then make some further notes. So as a child, I thought leading was all about whatever the case may be. I found out in my teenage years, blah, 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 blah. As a young adult, I moved my approach to collaborative leading. Okay. Today, I'm doing a webinar. And the future, well, let's go with continuous and never-ending improvement. All right. Sounds like the best way to do it. Now, the great thing about this is once the learners responded, they can then actually print, and then they'll be prompted to print a copy of that to walk away with. Now, the great thing about this is I can print this out to my color printer or my laser or whatever the case may be. Or if I want to, I can also save it as an Adobe file as well. If I can then email that to, as I said, a colleague or a mentor or a coach, and I can discuss further as well. So again, it's kind of providing a way that I can get extra information or thoughts out of Rise, and I can share those with other people within my organization as well. Now, you're not only restricted to things like that, you could also go with like a basic journal. So you could actually ask your learner at various sections throughout your course, hey, here's a question. We want to ask you an answer in regards to that. So it says, all right, so if you want to know this up, and then at the end of the course, you'll be able to print these out and take them away with you to talk with further as well, or to keep for your own evidence, continuing professional development, or maybe you need to keep a portfolio, whatever the case may be. So again, this gives you some really good ways that you can do that. So, you know, I'm a leader who's positive influence, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's hit submit on that one. You can expect me to be honest and transparent and blah, 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 as the case may be. So I keep going through and enter that information. And then when I get to the final slide, all that's happening here again is that those text variables that are being captured are being referenced. So here's what I answered the first question. Here's how I answered the second question. And again, I can then use that new print slide trigger within Storyline to actually print that out, keep a copy of it, and take it away with me as well. Now, this print option, it not only does it work on a desktop computer, I was testing a bit earlier on, it'll also work on your iPhone or your tablet as well. So if you've got a printer that is, you know, air compatible, that will print from either a phone or a tablet, you can print directly to those things as well, which is good news. And the last one is certificate. You know, so again, I've built this within Storyline itself. I've built a certificate on the slide. This has just opened a layer when I've come in, so I can actually write my name. So let's go John. John Johnson, that'll do. And then when I hit the print button, it'll add my name. And then again, it'll automatically, in this particular instance, what I've done is I've used that print screen trigger rather than to come off a button to just automatically print when it reaches like the 3-second mark. And there you go. I can then print my certificate out to save it to say that I've completed or done that RISE course that I've just worked my way through as well. So lots of opportunity there when it comes to adding those extra bits of functionality. All right. So guys, we're just coming up to the end. Got probably about 5 minutes up our sleeve just to finish up. But just to show you a very quick live example to show you how you could do this. Let's say I was creating an induction program for a new starter, and I want to send this link out to that new starter before they actually come into the office via their phone or via their tablet or even their computer at home, just to give them a bit of a tour of the office before they get there. So I could still create my course as I would normally do. So I can drop in, you know, a bit of a welcome message. Maybe I throw in a nice picture of wherever the business is. I could give some, you know, maybe some examples of our work so they know what they're signing up to. And then I might actually add, I don't know, maybe a information they need to bring with them on day one. And let's finish up with, I don't know, maybe a list of things to keep in mind when they start. So basically I can build this out. And then I can go, okay, I want to actually provide them with a 360-degree tour of the office so they know where everything is when they turn up. And I've just so happened to have got something like that previously created within my Storyline, and I've already published it to review. So let's add that as part of it. So I'll come down to my interactive blocks. As I said, you've got to scroll right down the bottom, but here it is down the bottom here, our Storyline block. Now, when I add that, it just pops in a placeholder. And then it's got a great big button on here that says, okay, browse review 360. So this is where anything you've published to review becomes available for you to embed within your RISE program itself. So I'm going to click on browse. It's going to give a listing of everything that I've built recently, but I'm just going to scroll down a bit and locate this tour. So here it is here. This is the one I want to add to my RISE course. So when I hover over it, it gives me the select button. So I'll hit select. And it goes, no worries. And what it does is it takes that and it embeds it within the RISE course itself. So it might take a little while as it loads up because it's quite a big one. Yeah, so that question, I just got a question in the chat. Rather than print out, can I just save it? Yeah, absolutely. Rather than printing it, you can just save it as an Adobe PDF file or as a PDF file. That way you've got an electronic copy of it, and then you can actually just email that or, you know, send that in a chat room or via Teams or whatever the case may be to anyone else that needs to get access to it. It's a good question. You don't have to print it out, but that print option will also let you save it as a PDF as well. So that's really handy to have as part of that. Okay, so here's my course. Now, I do have a couple of settings. So at the moment, this is the default size that it pops it into your Rise course as. But if I go into my edit button up to settings, I can actually make that medium size, so it's a bit bigger, or I can go full width of my actual Rise block as well. Now, good opportunity here. I can see that my background or my player is white. So I'm actually going to change the background of my block to white as well. So that's just done by the hex code of 6Fs. That's white. And now when I've done that, it nicely merges into that block for me as well. Might drop that down to medium. It's a bit big there. There we go. And then when I preview it or save it or publish it or whatever the case may be, I can send it out to my new starter. They get a bit of an overview of what the business is all about. They download what they should bring on day one. And then the last thing they get down the bottom here is basically, all right, time to tour the office. So before you come up, here's where you can locate all the bits and pieces you need. So let's go begin our tour. There we go. So we've got our 360 tour, got our information of interest, and then we can continue digging through that tour to get a real feel of the office that we're going to start work at on Monday, as the case may be, where to locate things, where to find things, and also just getting a bit of a feel for where everything is in regards to the office. Important things like the toilets, the restrooms, where to locate those, and also maybe some of the main offices as well, so that the learner can actually go and check out what's happening in each particular area. So there we go. So that's the really nice thing about Storyline. If you want to create something unique and particular that you want to share with your learner within Rise, then that's a great opportunity that you can do that as well. All right. So guys, it looks like we've just come to the end of our time together. So just to finish up, if there are any questions or queries, just to finish up in regards to that, more than happy to hang around and ask, get them all sorted now. Where's my, no, I don't want that. I want this. There we go. Let's make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Yes, I am. Fantastic. All righty. Are there any questions? Now's a great time to throw them in the chat or in the Q&A. Now, it is a bit of a super fast whirlwind tour, but it just kind of gives you some ideas of what type of capability you can really bring into play. And as I said, using things like explainer videos, you can create a video or an explainer within Storyline, publish that as a video, and then upload it into your Rise course as a video. You can create a custom interaction, and again, add that as part of that Storyline block, as we just saw there with our 360-degree office tour. Or if you want to create something a little bit more, response or notes, you can add something like a journal or some notes or some feedback for the actual learner, and then give them the opportunity via that brand new print trigger to either print a hard copy of it out via their printer or to save it as a PDF as well. All right. So there we go. So a couple of quick questions. So I'll just make sure that it's got it here. Now, Ian, great question. And this is a really important question too. Rise is responsive by its very nature. Okay. With Storyline is not as responsive. Okay. So that's the one thing to be aware of. What I mean by that is Storyline's got what's called a responsive player. So if you publish a Storyline course and have a look at that course on a tablet or a phone or a desktop computer, it will resize a little bit to suit the device it's on. However, when you import those into something like Rise, the rest of the module will automatically resize as Rise does, but the Storyline will still be kind of like a video that you need to keep an eye on. Okay, so if it's too small on a phone screen like this, you might actually have to test it a bit to see what it looks like. Then you might have to make some kind of design choices in regards to whether you may need to make text bigger or smaller, as the case may be. About 90% of Storyline stuff that you embed will look fine. but it's always a good idea just to publish it out and check it. If you know your learner is going to be accessing it on a mobile phone, just run a couple of UAT testing to make sure you can read it and it still works effectively as well. So the short answer is Storyline itself does not do the same kind of responsiveness as Rise does. It's pretty good, but just check it when you finish putting something together. Yeah. All right. So that's that. Okay, Yvette, yeah, you will get a copy, you'll get an email probably tomorrow, which will have a link to this video. So if you want to grab the video and watch it again, that'll come through then for you. All right, Deanne, great question. When you embed a quiz into Rise, so let me just pop back across here. Let's say I want to, let's say here, let me get rid of my office tour. Let's say I want to add that quiz. All right, so I wanted to add that quiz instead. So here's my quiz. All right, so this is a quiz I've built 100% in Storyline itself, okay? And it has a pass mark of 75%. So if this was what I wanted to use to determine completion for Rise, Rise actually doesn't mark this. That's all done automatically via the Storyline module that you've published. But when it comes to actually publishing your Rise course, so let's go back. Let's say we were going to export for an LMS. What you can do is you want to track using course completion. You want to track using the Storyline block, okay? And then you just select the quiz, all right? So wherever that quiz is, if that was what you're using to mark as completion for the Rise course, then you'd say to Rise, look, track using the Storyline block, and then tell it which block to use. Now that block is a quiz. It'll mark completion if the learner passes the quiz, just like it would normally do within Storyline. All right. If you didn't want to, if there wasn't a quiz, you could use on your Storyline module, you could use the completion trigger, and then you could tell Rise to again track using that Storyline block. And when that trigger says that it's completed, then Rise knows that course is completed. So that's the one thing to keep in mind. If you're going to use the Storyline block as the measure of completion for the Rise, you just need to make sure that when you export it for your LMS, that you choose track using Storyline block. So that's the key thing to keep in mind. So the rest of your question there, yes, all of the settings in regards to the quiz you would do in Storyline as normal. So you'd tell it what the pass mark is, you tell it which questions to include, and then on the results slide, you'd say what information to include there as well. So if I just pop back over here, here's the quiz here. So you would still set up your normal stuff. I'm just going to bring up the quiz settings. You would still have to set up the quiz via the quiz settings within Storyline. So including which questions to include and also what the pass mark is. And then once you've done that and published it, so if you like publishing your final version here to review, once you've done that, then within review, when you embed it back into Rise, it would use that to track it. Yeah, Rhiannon, great question. Yes, you would have to. It embeds them within the Rise course itself, so they're there. But if you're actually transferring ownership, you'd have to send them the Storyline files as well. They would then probably have to republish those Storyline files to their version of review and then re-embed them as well. Okay, so it can be a little bit finicky, but yeah, you'd have to give them the Storyline files as well so they can update those and publish them to their own review to embed them as well. It's a good question. So short answer, yes. What else? Alicia, I think, good question, Alicia. I think I checked this out for a client the other day. I think if you do a screen recording, depending on how you've saved it, so if you save it as a video, I don't think it auto plays. If you've saved it as a step-by-step process, I think it does auto play. So if that's the case, if you wanted to put something in Rise so that it doesn't auto play, I'd have like a title screen or something with some instructions about what they're about to see, and then maybe have a button to go to the actual screen recording from there to jump to the next slide. That means it's not all halfway through that process before the learner actually realizes it's playing. So I'd do something like that. All right, another great question, hex color codes. That's the one main difference between Rise and Storyline as well. Rise uses hex color codes, whereas Storyline, it can use hex color codes as well, but most of us are used to using red, green, blue numbers. All right. So there's a really nice website, or there's a number that you can find, which is called RGB to hex converter. All right. So once you know what the RGB code is, you can then actually plug in what the red value, green value, and blue value is, and it will then convert that to the hex code for you. So let's say my values were, I don't even know what color this is, I'm making it up now. All right, so if I've got, once I hit convert to hex, it'll actually give me the hex code. And then you can copy that from here and use that within your Rise course as well to set up your background colors. Yeah. The other one that I did, yep, yeah. So what that one is, this is actually an extension in Chrome. I think it's called Color Picker or something similar. So it's a Chrome extension. So Colorzilla, there we are, that's what it's called. So I'll just pop that in the chat. So if you use Chrome, you can actually, sorry, it's Colorzilla. So if you use Chrome, you can add that as an extension within Chrome. And then that allows you to actually just click that once. So page color, and then no matter where you hover on your web page, it'll tell you up the top there what the color is. So it gives you the RGB code and also gives you the hex code as well. All right, so that's a nice little extension that I've used to find colors if I'm looking for particular colors. It does need to be, as I said, it's an extension. It does need to be installed into Chrome. You do a search for it, you'll find it. Depending on how your IT department manages your technology within the organization, you may be able to install the extension yourself, or you may have to get them to do it for you. But it's a nice little one to have. I've got two here. I've got Colorzilla. The other one I've got is called What Font. And that's another nice one. It works the same way. You click on that, click on a font you see on the screen, and it will generally tell you what the font is as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's all right. No worries at all. So let me just pop that in. It's called What Font. And both are, as I said, both are Chrome browser extensions. All right. So ladies and gents, that brings us to the end of our session. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any other questions or queries, I'm going to hang around. I can answer them now for you. But if not, that is the proper part of our presentation finished. As I said, you should get an email probably tomorrow or in the next couple of days, which will have a link to this presentation. So you'll be able to go back and revisit it from there. So all the best with your Rise creation. Hopefully that's given you some ideas or some inspiration for ways that you can kind of add a little bit more to your Rise courses and give each of those a bit of uniqueness when it comes to your clients. All right. Thanks, guys, and we will see you next time.